Okay, so I wanted to start by thanking everyone for coming. It's a really tribute to Jeff to have everybody here, present here and online as well. When Jeff was in his last full day with us, I made a point to try to make that time he had as positive as I could. I was very lucky to be able to say things to him that I wanted to. Knowing that this would get his attention, one of the things I said to him was, "Remember how I rejected you at first?" He smiled, which is a rare thing in his last month, and he said, "You need to tell that story." So I'm going to tell the story of how we started. I first met Jeff when I was just 15. I started working at a local toy store in West LA. Both my siblings and his actually worked there at one time or another. It was a family affair. We became friends over that summer before he left for college. Our friendship continued through letters and when he was home for breaks and holidays. When he came home, we often went out together with others, or sometimes it was just the two of us. A couple of years into our friendship, we were hanging out one night at a local park. We did this often, just talking. As I rambled on about something, who knows what I was talking about, Jeff leaned over and kissed me. Being the very awkward 17-year-old that I was at the time, and completely not expecting that, I did what anyone would do. I completely ignored what just happened and kept talking. Yeah, it was awkward. So fortunately, our friendship didn't suffer, at least not for too long. At some point, we started hanging out again. We actually never talked about what happened. Jeff did try to talk to me the next day, but again, awkward. About a year and a half later, myself, Jeff, and a couple others had gone out. We were standing around trying to decide what movie to go see. I was standing across from Jeff, and I had the proverbial light bulb moment. I literally felt this shift in my brain, and I knew in that moment that he was the one. I did worry about our other moment, and that he might not give it another shot. But we all know Jeff is pretty determined when he wants something. Fortunately, he still was interested in me. Lucky for me, after a few months of what I hoped were the right signals being sent his way, Jeff gave it another try. And as they say, the rest is history. In case you were wondering, we did eventually talk about that first kiss. It was, in fact, something we joked about many times. The majority of our friendship, and about the first year of the first year and a half we were dating, or a year out of the first year and a half, were spent living in different cities. He was still in San Luis Obispo in college. I was still in West LA. So we did what you did back then before email, text, and the like. We wrote letters to each other. I still have those many letters, and I'm so lucky to have them. I thought I would share something I said to him in one of those letters because those feelings are as true today as they were back then. I wrote, "I want to thank you for everything. I know I'm the luckiest person in the world, and going out with you was one of the most intelligent things I've ever done. I always felt so lucky that Jeff chose me. He simply took me as I was and loved me regardless. Ever since we came together when I was 19, he's been the most important person in my life. Jeff shaped so much of who I am today, from the little things, like I really like using spreadsheets now, to the big things, like learning how to love, being generous and kind. Jeff was so many things. A great husband and dad, dedicated son, brother, and friend. He was smart, funny, fun-loving, thoughtful, and always giving to others. He lived well. He loved well. And I've been so privileged to be along with him on the journey."
So I'm going to read a letter that my dad gave me. Oh, well, to all three of us, actually. It was the last gift that he gave us for Christmas. It's on the memory table. It's a plaque that he gave us. It said, "Be good, do your best, and have fun." So the letter says, "Dear Justin, Keen, and Kira, I wanted to share with you some words of wisdom that I've been working on since you were all very small. Early on, there were at least 8 things on the list that would have been impossible for you or I to remember, so I prioritized, combined, and streamlined the list over time. And now it stands at 3 things, only 7 words total, a perfect match for my man of few words mentality. So the first one, be good, always as in be a good person, use good manners, have a good attitude, have a good outlook on life, and make good choices. I liken this to ultimate spirit of the game, but applies to both on and off the field. In everything you do, surround yourself with good people, and this will be easy to do."
Second thing he said to us was, do your best. Always. This originated from my Theta Chi days where our motto was work hard, play hard. This helped me focus on schoolwork and build a competitive spirit in everything I did, work or play. Later that helped me with triathlons and growing my career. John Wooden said, success comes from knowing that you did your best to become the best that you're capable of becoming.
And the final one, have fun. Always. This is generally easy to do 99% of the time. There will be times in your life where you find yourself in a situation that is absolutely no fun. Maintain a positive attitude, keep a smile on your face, and make the most of where you're at, and you will make it through, sorry. And another Wooden quote. This one is my favorite. Things turn out best for the people who make the best of the way things turn out. Did I read that right? Okay. Sorry. And then his little conclusion paragraph here. For the past 5 years, I have a 9 a.m. daily calendar alarm go off to remind me to be good, do your best, and have fun. This gift to you was my way to allow you to display these words and let it be a reminder to you. I hope your spirit, competitiveness, and attitude will guide you through your lives and bring you success in all you do. With love, Dad.
I also wanted to speak for Nellie, our dog. There's not much to say because most of it we can only infer about their relationship. But one thing I know for sure is that my dad was the only one who would that Nellie would allow to pick her up. So if that says anything.
Okay, so now the sisters.
I was overwhelmed. I'm Jan. I'm the oldest sister of Jeff, in case you were wondering. He was our only brother. 4 girls, 1 boy. Coach is a father. I think he was only brother because he fit the role perfectly. We didn't need anyone else. I think about often, even before he passed, what it must have been like to grow up with 4 of us, Coach's daughters, stubborn, opinionated, emotional. 4 letters come to mind. PTSD. He handled this role with silent grace. He was a studly boy once he got past his geeky glasses stage. And if you haven't seen it, Kira captured it perfectly on the wall above the memorial table. There was a reason I think he kept losing them and breaking them, or they were broken, because he hated them. He never cleaned them. He would play dolls with us, but the dolls would do dive bombs with machine gun assaults over Barbie's home and take out most of her friends and all the Barbie buildings. When we were all talking at once, within the Schreiber family, it's an often event. Jeff knew when to stay silent and to stay back. He also knew when to speak up. And when we were done emoting, he would step up, share his wisdom, and most of the time it was the wisest thing that had come out of anyone's mouth. He was a fun playmate when I was a kid. I was 6 years older, but he was a competitor even then. And so he played hard, and he was stiff competition. I, being 6 years older, didn't get the berating, persecution that my youngest sister did, which she will fill in the blanks. But there was a season when every time I came home from school, Jeff greeted me at the door and wanted to wrestle. The winner, because we're a coach's family, got to pick what chore the loser had to do for that day. He would do my chores all the time, but it never stopped him from greeting me at the door and asking for me to wrestle. Over a period of time, I started to realize I was losing my edge. It took longer to win. I was hurting after. But we kept going until that faithful day when he won. And I did his chore for the first time. The next day, he met me at the door. Let's wrestle. Oh no, I'm never going to wrestle you again, because I'm never going to win again. But after watching him take out the offensive line in high school, I know I made the right decision. What defined Jeff most to me was how he led with gentle quietness. He chose kindness, demonstrated patience. He exercised wisdom in knowing when not to speak, and he spoke by what he did, not what he spoke. He lived his life with discipline, great adventure. And it is so hard to comprehend that he's gone. I couldn't have picked a better brother if I had chosen him myself. It was a blessing and an honor to be his sister, and I will miss him terribly the rest of my life.
Okay, I'm Lori, the second oldest, Jeff's sister. I wrote a letter to him, and so this is my letter. Dear Jeff, it's still so hard to comprehend that you're no longer here on earth with us. When I close my eyes and think of you, I see pictures of you and your three sisters and me growing up. So I thought I would take us on a trip down memory lane. Your sisters and I loved you so much, Jeff. As kids, we grew up together in our beloved 1906 Fairburn home with Mom and Dad. We fought, as most siblings do, over things like picking out the favorite cereal for the week, the phone, especially with 4 sisters, the length of time in the bathroom when there's 7 of us and there's 4 girls, Jeff's loud AC/DC heavy metal music making the walls vibrate in the entire house. We played Hot Wheel cars with track with superchargers, ran through the sprinklers. We were lucky to have a neighborhood full of kids, so we would go and play hide and go seek, play baseball in the corners with the lampposts as our bases, and play tag. But by far our ultimate favorite was playing our yearly family softball games at the June picnics at Mile Square Park. We laughed at each other. We laughed at each other and with each other over the years. We laughed going down the slip and slide, telling silly jokes, jumping out and scaring each other, making funny faces, hitting ourselves and blaming it on somebody else, and lying on Dad's back, racing down the hill on the flexi. We loved Mom's homemade chocolate chip cookies, hot cocoa, and when we came home from school, and the 5 of us in our pajamas in the drive-in theaters, watching movies anywhere from Lady and the Tramp to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Going to the Dodger games for our birthdays, our Thanksgiving and Christmas traditions. I know, we sisters loved doting on our one and only brother. Jeff, that was you. We loved you no matter what, no matter how far or many miles we were apart. We cried together when we lost a fish, a hamster, turtle, dogs. We cried when we lost our grandpa, grandma, nana, uncle, aunties. We were devastated with the loss of our mom and dad, and now another devastating loss with our one and only brother. As we grew older and into adulthood, our relationship changed. It got even better. The experiences we shared made us appreciate each other even more. It's so hard to put in words what a special brother you are. You are a special person in this dark and crazy world, our bright and shining star. A special person to hold my hand no matter what time of day. A special person to laugh with me and help me find my way. A special person to just sit and listen when I don't know what to do. A special person who gives sound advice and helps me make it through. A special person to we all who knew and love you, helping whenever you were needed. A special love we have for you, my special little brother, to me. I will treasure the times we had together and hold on those memories we've made. I will miss your sense of humor, your gentle ways, and of course your warm, inviting smile. I miss you and I love you forever, forever in my heart. Your sister, Lori.
So I'm sister number 3, the one right above Jeff. So ask anybody who knows me, I have never been one to be at a loss for words. And yet, here we are, 25 days from July 15th, and I'm still grappling with the reality that my little brother is gone. I have no words. I have no platitudes to make myself or anyone feel better. I have no understanding why Danielle has lost the love of her life and why Justin, Keaton, and Kira have lost their dad. It doesn't make sense to me that Team Schreiber is one man down. All I know is that Jeff will be missed by all of us who had him in our lives. Some of you may already know there were 5 kids in our family, and Jeff was the only boy. I am the 3rd child, and Jeff was the 4th, born 3 years after me. When he was very little, we 3 older sisters would mother him to death, to the point where he never had to speak. That's where it came. Because we would fetch him whatever he wanted. All he had to do was point and grunt. Our mom got mad at us and told us that we would be the ones in trouble if we didn't stop and let Jeff use his own words to ask for what he wanted. So we backed off. And guess what? Jeff started speaking sentences. He had all the words the whole time. He just didn't need to use them. And that was my brother. He was the one that would listen first and speak last. He was always able to listen to a room full of squabbling sisters and wait for that perfect moment to chime in with his assessment of the situation, which was always spot on. I am not sure how our sister squabbles will go on in the future without our voice of reason. He was so successful at work because he could do the work of the zipper heads, which was Jeff's word for programmers, but was also able to clearly communicate them to clients in non-zipperhead lingo so that they understood things. It made him very successful. It seemed like in every situation, whether it was in his professional or personal life, Jeff had the answers and resolutions to problems, and he was able to convey his thoughts quickly, succinctly, and rationally, and a lot of time he did it without the use of words. Jeff communicated love through his actions. Living in Colorado, when the rest of your immediate family lives in California, it puts the onus on the outlier to do most of the traveling. Jeff's love for our family was spoken every time he added some time onto a business trip to California so he could come visit our parents. It was felt when he and Danielle and the kids came out to California most Thanksgivings, which was not a short car ride, but they did it willingly. He showed his love with his presence when our mom and dad were both sick and we all took turns taking care of them. I always enjoyed visits with my brother. He was fun, funny, smart, and just really easy to be around. I am glad for my memories of us growing up together, trips taken with him and our families, and all those laughs around the dining room table at Mom and Dad's house playing cards. I am sure he is the only other person, besides me, that can recite the skits from our Bill Cosby and Smothers Brothers albums, especially from the Mom Always Liked You Best one. And he is the only person I know that managed to finish an entire 13 rounds of the 5 crowns with a final score of 6. He had a funny, self-deprecating sense of humor that started when he was little and had to wear the ugliest damn glasses known to man. Sometimes even with the white tape wrapped around the nose piece for the full geek effect. I have no idea what my parents were thinking. He wrapped up his humor in the form of a perfect smile that was perfected in high school in an effort to hide the fact that he was losing his hair. People noticed, though, given that some people nicknamed him Yule, after the bald actor of the day, Yul Brynner. But the personality behind the glasses and the chrome dome shone through in that beautiful smile. His smile spoke volumes. It was infectious. I will never forget that smile he gave to us sisters when we walked into the hospital room to say goodbye to him. It was big. It was heartfelt. It was long. It told us that he loved us. I am beyond sad that I won't have the opportunity to make new memories with Jeff, that I'll have to revel in his smiles from photographs instead of in person. But I am forever grateful that he was my favorite little brother, even if it was for way too short of a time. I love you and will miss you always, JB.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Christy O'Shaughnessy, formerly Schreiber, and I'm one of Jeff's 4 sisters. He had the distinction of being the only boy in our clan. He was 2 years older than me and was my first best friend, protector, and my tormentor, all rolled into one. I think he was such a compliant younger brother to my 3 dominating older sisters because he got to take his frustrations out on me. So today I have prepared a top 10 list to honor my brother in a way that only I can, from the perspective of the only sister that was younger than he was. Number 10, crayons. My brother loved to color on the walls in my room with my crayons. I think it was because it brought him great joy to hear my mom yell out, "Christine Diane!" Because in our house, if your first and your middle name was used, you were in big trouble. And in his mind, that was mission accomplished. Number 9, Hot Wheels. Jeff and I spent many, many hours playing with his Hot Wheels. However, I was only allowed to play with the boring, plain ones. I never got the ones that had the nice paint jobs or the cool racing stripes. So one day I decided I just had to play with one of his special ones, and I grabbed it. And he got mad at me and tried to grab the car away from me, and I was standing between the dining room table and the window. And he got mad and he did a little push to the table, and there I went back, my head crashed, and I broke some of the side panes of the windows. He got his car back, and I got some stitches for my defiance. Number 8, world domination and annihilation. Jeff's favorite games to play with me, one of them was Risk, where he would single-handedly dismantle my troops with his massive army and gleefully display his world domination. His other favorite game to play with me was Battleship, where I barely got to put one red peg when you find the boat in his before he had completely annihilated my entire fleet. Number 7, Christy, stop hitting me. We had a Chinook, which is a type of a camper growing up, and Mom and Dad would sit in the front, and the 5 of us, or however many, would be in the back. And Jeff would sit in the back there, and he'd go like this. Ouch! Christy, stop hitting me! My mom would turn around from the front seat, not having seen it, but only hearing the smack, and she would say, Christy, leave your brother alone. A couple minutes later would go by, and another smack. Ouch! Christy, stop hitting me! And the same thing again, until that Mom turned around and the Christine Diane came out again, and he would just sit there and smirk at me. Number 6 on my list is catamarans and SWAT. Jeff and I used to catamarans on his skateboard down Fairburn Avenue, and then run and dodge in and out of the cars and roll over the hoods while humming the SWAT theme. Dun-dun-dun, 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 dun-dun-dun. He was the deacon to my TJ. I loved spending time with him, even if it meant doing things like this or jumping over fences. I just wanted to be like him and to be liked by him. Number 5, scholar athlete. Being Jeff's little sisters meant having teachers who had predisposed expectations and were very excited to have Jeff Schreiber's little sister in their class. It was a very high bar that he set, and I unfortunately heard on several occasions that I was no Jeff Schreiber. Number 4, life in your hands. Driving with Jeff was an adventure. You would think, as the type of person that he was, that he would drive all practical and safe. But Jeff was a tailgating, lane-changing machine. You took your life in your hands when he drove, although there was an upside that you almost always got to where you wanted to go early. Number 3 on my list is just a snack. Jeff would come home after school absolutely starving. He would make himself a snack consisting of 1, sometimes 2 sandwiches. My mom would object that dinner was soon, and he insisted, and she always relented. He would eat his snack and then still manage to chow down with the family for dinner as well. I was always envious that he could eat so much food and not even gain a single pound. Number 2, call waiting. We had one phone that was based on a little stand on the top of the hallway. When you got a call, you would drag it down to your room and try to sneak it in there so you could have some semblance of privacy, so you didn't have to sit in the hallway. My parents decided it was important with so many kids to get call waiting. And the rule was that if somebody else called in, you were supposed to get off. Unfortunately, as the youngest, I was the low man on the totem pole. And only after my brother was talking to girlfriends and friends did I ever get to hear who had called in for me. A lot of times by then it was even too late to return a call, and the phone was now off limits. And the number 1 on my list is twins. Sorry. When Jeff was a junior in high school, I was a lonely little geeky freshman. Every time I'm on campus, I would wave at him, "Hi, Jeff!" All excited, and he's, football player with all his friends, super popular, would just kind of look at me and roll his eyes or whatever. One day, Mustafa, which is one of his best friends, said, "Oh, she's so cute. Look at her twin. She looks just like you." So fast forward a little bit, and one day, Mustafa was in my dad's office, and he's looking at the family photo, and he says to my dad, that he was absolutely shocked that Christy looked like the rest of the family. And my dad kind of looked at him like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, being that she's adopted and all." So that's how my brother explained me away, as I was adopted. My dad just shook his head and set him straight that I was not adopted. Jeff, I will miss your sense of fun, your thoughtfulness, your intuitiveness, your ability to reason and remain calm. Most of all, I will miss that smile of yours that came so easily and lit up a room every time. I hope you and Dad are up there playing daily cribbage matches while enjoying Mom's delicious pumpkin bread. I miss you, my brother.
Hi everyone. My name is Erica, and I'm Jeff's niece from California. I'm Terry's daughter. We didn't get to see Uncle Jeff a lot, but when we did, it was always a great time. Whenever his sisters were throwing down like World Star, he would always still have a smile on his face. In one family trip in 2011, we had a family reunion, but before we went to Yosemite with just the Schreiber family. From Yosemite to Fallbrook, I rode with them. We spent the 6-hour drive listening to music, singing, talking, and having fun. A song came up and Uncle Jeff was quick to pause it. And that's when he asked, "Erica, are your parents okay with you listening to music with cuss words in it?" I said yes, which was not true. Looking back, I'm very happy that I said yes, because without listening to the song, I wouldn't have made the connection to one of the most special memories that I hold with Uncle Jeff. And it would have also been way longer until I heard my now favorite song. It was Little Lion Man by Mumford & Sons. By the time the song was over and we were done jamming out, I knew all the lyrics. This song not only holds a memory of my uncle that I wouldn't have had otherwise, but it also has this song not only holds a memory of my uncle, but many other fun, sad, and crazy moments that I wouldn't have had otherwise. The writer of the song, Marcus Mumford, states that the song represents the harder and darker side of life, and at the same time, the more folksy, upbeat, and punchy side. To me and all of us, our harder and darker time was obviously losing him when we did, but we can all find comfort in the fact that he lived an upbeat, folksy, and punchy life. For the years that we did have him, and they were great and always full of love.
Hi, I'm Jeff's cousin Dave. Our mothers are sisters, so growing up we spent a lot of time together at our homes, but doing LA and Orange County, driving back and forth, birthdays, holidays, and picnics. Between our two families, there were 7 girls and 3 boys, so we were vastly outnumbered. So Kevin, my brother, and I spent a lot of time in Jeff's room or outside playing basketball with Uncle Dick and Uncle Paul. Jeff loved sports and competition. As most of you know, Jeff played football as a top athlete during high school, and I ran. Although not planned, we ended up getting accepted into Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, both for electrical engineering degrees, 1 year apart. Jeff was a year ahead of me. After a few years in college, I found myself kind of at a crossroads. Wasn't very happy with my current life and where I was headed. And so I looked for a change, looking for a room to rent during campus, near campus. Jeff had a place that opened up in his apartment, and he welcomed me in to live with him in his apartment. That was the beginning of a lot of different changes in my life, all positive. Jeff was also a member of fraternity, Theta Chi, and I rushed that spring with my roommate for fun. I wasn't really interested in fraternity life, but I received a bid. I accepted it, and again was invited into Jeff's house, this time as a brother. I still remember the infamous dirt farmer road trips, where 40 guys would pour out the back of a U-Haul after a long trip, 3-4 hour road trip, and a keg of beer. Yeah, it was quite a sight to see. That's one of my more vivid memories of Jeff, spending most of that evening with Jeff. In the work hard, play hard, that fell into the play hard category. So Jeff was a year ahead of me and soon graduated and was off to Colorado to work at Hughes. A few years later, I had quit my job in California and moved to Colorado with my wife-to-be, Nicole. She had gotten a job in IBM, and we said, it's time to pick up and move, start over. Unfortunately for me, there was a hiring freeze in the industry. It was really tough. I spent 3 months filling out applications, calling, interviews, nothing. It was looking bleak. But then Jeff said, I think I can get you an interview at Hughes at the time. So I obviously took him up on that, eager for the opportunity. I still remember that day, the interview with Bob, Keith, and Eunice, who were kind of supervisors above Jeff. They were excited to meet someone who was genetically related to Jeff. I guess they figured if something rubbed off at all, it would be a good hire. Anyone who's worked with Jeff understands how driven and competent he was. So this time, Jeff welcomed me into his work life, and I had the opportunity to see him in action as a talented, highly respected engineer. I'm confident some of the code that he wrote in the 1990s is actually still in use today. If all that wasn't enough, a year later, Jeff saved our honeymoon. We had left our passports at home and didn't discover it until we were in Florida on our way to the Cayman Islands. Who knew Cayman Islands? Foreign, right? So Jeff drove up from Westminster, broke into our house, managed to find our passports, which were pretty well hidden, got them FedExed to us overnight, and sent them out to Florida. We were running down the concourse and barely made it to the gate. They were shutting the door when we got there. So he was responsible for us having a honeymoon. Over the years, whether it was hiking, Halloween parties, holiday brunches, or touch football, Jeff was always there with a big, welcoming smile. I can honestly say that Jeff influenced the course of my life several times. I know I'm fortunate to have known Jeff as a cousin, housemate, brother, co-worker, and friend. All of us have been fortunate and blessed to have Jeff in our lives. Thank you, Jeff, for welcoming us into your life. You are missed.
Hi, most of the people here know me as Noel. So I met Jeff 36 years ago. Lucky enough that my friend from Cal Poly, Mike Steese, said, there's this guy who's going to go to Cal Poly next year. I think you're going to like him. Just like you, electrical engineering major, competitive, love sports, love football. Only difference was he liked the Steelers, I liked the Niners. But with all that, meeting Jeff for these 36 years, we had a lot that we shared together. At Cal Poly, we took all these classes together, studied together. There was a year we were roommates, and we made a zipper lab in our apartment together. Yeah. And I did ride around in his B210, Mustard B210, and he drove crazy. And for all these things after Cal Poly, when he helped me through school, he was smart, we all know that. I helped him in the way I could. A little funner, phone calls from Theta Chi asking, Noel, can you pick up Jeff and give him a ride home? I was happy to do that every time. To do that for all the stuff he's given to me and all of us here. Everything he's done, from all his generosity, always being there, to call, to text, to email, to talk about anything, whether it's sports or tech geek stuff or football, he was there. And even after Cal Poly, we went ahead and we stayed in touch. Before both of us had kids, we would see each other, some years 4 or 5 times. We would come out to Colorado or they would come out to California. Whatever, wine tasting, going to the beaches, vacation in Hawaii, whatever. It didn't matter what we did, but just to be together was awesome. It was a great feeling. So as our families grew, how much I feel, and my wife Bernice agreed, how much we feel about Jeff, what a great person he was. Our first kid, our son, Nicholas, me coming from a big Filipino family, go figure, we wanted Jeff to be his godfather. So that by itself tells what we think, what we feel about all Jeff, for all the positiveness and all the just talk to, and he was there all the time. As we moved on, we still kept in touch. All these 36 years, we kept in touch. Sometimes more than others as our kids started getting more involved with stuff, but we kept in touch. We always reached out. One thing, every once in a while we'd talk, sometimes a long time on the phone. He probably got in trouble from Danielle. I probably got in trouble from Bernice, talking over an hour on the phone. But in these calls, and also sometimes face-to-face, there were a couple times he told me something, and I know he told Danielle. I'm sure he did. If he didn't, I'll tell you now. He said he was the luckiest guy in the world to have Danielle. And when he said that, it wasn't a joke. It wasn't goofing off. He wasn't having too much Jack Daniels or anything. It was serious. So he meant it in his heart. Danielle, you meant a lot to him. He said he's the luckiest guy to have you with him for all this. But with all that, although we're here for what we're here for, I know that in all these memories I have with Jeff, with Danielle, with the kids, all these memories, all these things we're going to see that remind us of him, I'm going to treasure. And he'll live on, not just in those memories, but in anything I do. When I think of Jeff, he'll be there. He's not my brother, not by Theta Chi, definitely not by blood, but he treated me, and I treated him like my brother. And I'm going to miss him, but his legacy will live on within me. Thank you.
My name's Rick Houghton. I go way back with Jeff to just before high school started. So I was one of the friends that used to torment Christy. I was definitely going to tell the story about part 4 with the driving, because I was there when he did, well, I know the whole story of when he did a 180 with the little Honda. So the story I want to share is one of part of what Danny shared earlier, except from Jeff's perspective on the missing kiss. Because I went to perhaps the same park, and Jeff wasn't long on words. He kind of got to the point, and this one perplexed him greatly. He was like, so I kissed her, and then she just kept talking. So it's like, I didn't know what to do. I wasn't sure, did she know I just kissed her? But clearly and thankfully and everything that's happened for you guys, I remember helping you move or pack up the truck when you were on your way to Colorado, and and visiting, seeing the house and all that. And much of what I can say is on the fun side of Jeff. So I was there with the competitive stuff. I was there to answer a lot of stories. Noel has picked me up in his car late at night or early in the morning, however you want to call it. But I love Jeff. I'm representing hopefully quite a few people that are on the stream right now that can't be here. So I represent for them as well, and including Mustafa's widow who's watching, Luann. So I can say that the Steelers are probably going to be a good bet to do a lot of good things this year. And I'm very proud to watch all my USC alumni represented by these Steeler jerseys. And love Jeff, love both families very much. Thank you.
I'm Annette. I'm Danielle's youngest sister. It won't go long before before the tears flow. I want to express a tremendous amount of gratitude for Jeff, wherever you are. Jeff, you had the most exquisite smile. And I feel like every time I'm going to see that smile coming around some corner and think it's you. And maybe it's you with us in some way. There's lots of pretty funny stories with Jeff for sure. Maybe, Paul, you can tell the Yosemite story. That'd be great. But I just want to thank you, Jeff. I want to thank you for welcoming us. Whether it was the next Bray passing through your guest bedroom on their way to Colorado in their new home, or the drink you offered, just in that true awareness of another presence with you. You're a really kind heart. You're a very warm and very intentional presence with everyone who came to you. And most of all, I want to thank you for what you brought to my sister's life and the 3 amazing children that you brought. When we look at that legacy alone, that would be worth the amazing 54 years you were here. And so I want to thank you for what you brought. Oh, and for the past 30-some years, Jeff and I have been birthday buddies. We shared a birthday. And like all of you, you'll have those moments where you're going to reflect on the space that he took up and that he doesn't fill for us for now. So my birthday will be that for a little while. And for all of you, it'll be your own special moment or moments. But thank you so much for what you brought. And we're going to miss you tremendously and love you dearly.
Hello, my name is Brent Dorsman. I moved to Denver in the early 90s. I knew one person, a friend of my sister's, and nobody else. And one day I went into a Gart Brothers store, and this girl was working behind the photo counter, which I'm a photographer. It was Danielle, and pretty sure that I flirted with her. And then I met Jeff, and even though he was a lot shorter than me, I realized he could totally kick my ass. And I said, okay, I like Jeff too. Thankfully, that was a good thing. And even though these two definitely didn't need any more family. They really took me in as family when I didn't have anybody even close around here. Oh, that started sooner. Sorry. And I mean, I don't know how many different Thanksgivings or Christmases I came over for dinner. The Halloween parties. I could share pictures of that, but I don't know if it's a good idea with the kids around. I have a picture of my now wife and I dressed up as old folks with gray hair and Bermuda shorts. And the funny part is I look exactly like that now, 25 years later. Even the fake gray hair then, now it's real. But we did a ton of hiking, and I'm so grateful for them getting me out there and showing me places I wouldn't have gotten to otherwise. I climbed 9 14ers way back in the day, and I did 5 of them with Jeff and Danny. Mount Democrat, which was like a blizzard, felt like we were doing Everest. Mount Bierstadt we did in mid-May, so it was really nice weather. We're wearing shorts like this, but it was completely snowy. We all learned some things about sunburn that day. The places we didn't know could get sunburned, they did. I mean, like I said, the parties. I remember a 20s murder mystery party. I probably still have the Argyle vest someplace in a closet. I'm sure it fits perfectly. 2-3 days after I heard about Jeff, I got to go out doing a quick camping trip by myself, photography trip, which I don't do as much as I like anymore. And I was camping up at 12,600 feet. And the view was unbelievable. I could count 7 14ers from where I stood. And Mount Antero was over there, and that was one we climbed together. That was a perfect day. And I thought of Jeff. And I was up there for 2 nights. And both nights, I got huge double rainbows. Sorry. And it was unbelievably special. And I just, yeah, that's all right. I don't have much else besides that. Just, Jeff and Danielle, thank you so much for everything you guys did for me early on. I know we haven't seen each other as much as we'd like to. I love you both. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for being here. This means a lot to everybody here, so I really appreciate it. So I'm Mark. I'm Danielle's brother. So Jeff and I go back, I guess technically we go back to LA, where he was friends with my sisters and eventually became my sister's husband. Back then I was just the dorky little kid brother. I'm not sure that's actually changed, but that's the way it was back then for sure. So I really didn't get to know Jeff until I graduated from college and had no job prospects whatsoever. He was this like incredible engineer working at Hughes, and he submitted my resume to the company and said, yeah, let's see if we could get you in this place. So I remember being in the interview, and clearly the interviewer was looking at my resume and realizing I really had no skills whatsoever. He's asked me, like, what do you like to do on your free time? Like, I don't know, bike, I like to sleep, you know. Not a whole lot, but they gave me the job anyway. And so clearly the reason I got the job was because of Jeff. There's no other reason there. So, but there's also, Jeff and I definitely shared a bond over being big Steeler fans, of course. And I think we definitely impressed that upon our kids and self as well. I'd just like to point out too just how much so. My son sitting here right now literally is wearing Steelers underwear right now, just so you know. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'll always remember and cherish the times we used to get together for Steeler games on Sunday. And living in Colorado, we didn't always get the Steelers games, so we got DirecTV, and we'd go over and watch the games. They're usually the early games. And we'd be cheering and be really stressed afterwards because Steelers never made anything easy. And then I remember you had a recliner, I think, that I was sitting in. The Steeler game would end. And I'm like, oh, there's afternoon games, so I'm just going to hang out. And usually I'd watch some games, fall asleep. And I'm pretty sure Jeff would go to Danny and say, why is your brother still at our house? I think he's growing roots in this chair. So, but yeah, we had some great times then. Some other times were pretty funny with watching. I remember watching some Steelers games, and Megan, our first kid, was born, and she was, I don't know, 4 months, 6 months. And we had her in the little baby bouncy thing, like in the corner while we're watching the games. So we get her asleep. She's like sleeping. We're like, this is great. We're going to watch the game, whatever. Steelers make whatever, some great play, and just like, yeah! Wow! Like, oh no! So that used to happen a lot, but I couldn't really blame him because I was pretty excited too. So, but I have to say, the ultimate Steeler watching experience with Jeff definitely has to be the playoff game with the Indianapolis Colts. I think it was like the first round. It was at 2005, I believe. And this was like, and for I don't know how many Steelers fans we have out here, but like an incredible, incredible game. So we were, the whole second half, we weren't sitting. We were just pacing back and forth and watching this game. And towards the end of the game, the Steelers were ahead most of the game. The Colts started climbing back. Steelers went in for a touchdown, except they fumbled the ball. The Colts got it, and then they were going ahead for the tying field goal. So we were all like on pins and needles, just like, oh man, you can't blow this game. And Indianapolis kicker kicks the field goal and misses. Jeff jumps up like, yeah, comes down, boom, oh, he goes down to the floor and tore his ACL, cheering for the Steelers. So that is a true Steeler fan. I actually told him, they went to the Super Bowl that year. I'm like, you should have written into the Steelers organization because I think he would have gotten free tickets for that, being that diehard fan. But as much as I enjoyed those times, one of the things I always remember about Jeff is just how considerate he was. We would go to Dan and Jeff's house for various holidays or events and stuff, and he was always very welcoming. He always made sure that people had what they needed and were having a good time. And even we would host some things at our house, and even at our house, we'd come over and Jeff would get up and do dishes, and I'm like, hey, relax, man. You could, you don't have to do everything. But he was always just extremely considerate. With my mom, who was physically couldn't move very well, he was always the first one to get her the wheelchair, get her up the steps and into the house. So I always just remember how considerate he was, and I think that's all I have. So just want to say I love you, Jeff, and I'll miss you.
My name is Tom. Good friends of the Schreibers. Good friends of ours, Mark and Chris, lived in Denver for a little while in their early 2000s, and since then moved back to Australia. And they couldn't be here today, but I suspect if it wasn't for the global pandemic, they quite likely would be. But Mark did pass along a story that I've been asked to read, so you'll have to imagine the accent yourselves. The year was 2003. Jeff thought I should learn more about American culture, specifically American football. And it was a Monday Night Football, an institution, and it was suggested as an appropriate time to introduce it and educate me. I'm not sure it was more for going to the bar. But with a friend of his, unfortunately, I can't recall his name, but I do remember distinctly that you were quite pregnant at the time. And there were some concerns about the timing of the trip to the game. The game and the education of American culture continued for the evening, interspersed with the occasional beer, which was not Bud, thankfully. And a fun night was had. I'm not sure if it was mine or Jeff's idea to have one more beer for the road. But just as the night was coming to a close, Jeff's mobile rang. A look of shock, excitement, and holy crap came across his face. But sobriety came fast. He was bundled off home, and the story had a very happy ending. I don't recall who played that night, but for the sake of the story, let's say it was the Steelers. And also let's say they won. And he did that evening with the birth of their daughter, Kira. As Aussies like to say, Jeff was a mate, and he gave true mateship. He was always willing to be there with you. He had a big heart, and he was true blue. Jeff, you were taken too soon. I'd like to add, I wasn't intending to speak, but I'd like to add, about a year after that, I came home from work and was told by my wife, Paula, that we were going to Benihana's for Christmas Eve dinner with the Schreibers and Mark and Chris and their family. I didn't know that was a thing, but off we went. And we had a wonderful night, 5 boys, 2 little ones. And after that, we went back to the Schreiber's house to continue the evening. The grown-ups played games. The older boys bounced off the wall because it was Christmas Eve. And after a while, we stopped playing and we checked on NORAD for Santa's, how far Santa had come along. And little did I know that that evening would turn into quite the annual event. Since then, since 2004, with the exception of a couple of years where either we were out of town, they were out of town, or we were up in the mountains, so the 3 families were up in the mountains, we would go to Benihana's for the night, and then Jeff and Danielle always invited us back to their place. As the kids grew older, we stopped checking NORAD for Santa's advancement, and they joined us at the table to play games, which Jeff won more than his fair share. In the last couple of years, when we've gone over there, we've also been asked to judge cookie baking contests, which are surprisingly competitive at the Schreiber's house. And the last thing I would say is you never really know on one side if it's an important annual event or not. And so every year early on, Paula, my wife, would say, well, are we going to Benihana's with the Schreibers this year? And you don't know. Maybe they were looking forward to it, maybe they weren't. And finally, Paula couldn't wait any longer, and she would reach out to Danielle, and Danielle would say, Kira was just asking about this. And we would make reservations for Benihana's. And like I said, I didn't realize it was a thing. It was surprisingly hard to get reservations at a normal dinner hour. So if you waited too long, the options were 4:45 or 8 o'clock. So my wife, being the planner that she is, couldn't take that. So she just started making the reservations on her own for 8. And then Danielle would call and ask if we were going to Benihana's, or indicate that Kira had asked if we were going to Benihana's, and she would say, I've already made the reservations. And this past year, we even topped that because there was discussion of just how early can you make reservations at Benihana's. And we got home that night, and my wife Paula tried to make it and found out she couldn't. But she did find out the next day, within a year, you could make reservations. So we have reservations at Benihana's for this Christmas Eve. And they're standing, and when you're ready to join us again, we'd love to have you. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak.
What a beautiful day. Knowing how much Jeff loved the mountains and hiking, Danielle, you couldn't have dialed up a better one as a tribute and a way to remember and hopefully set some nice positive memories for today. In the great spirit of Jeff, I had worked up a few notes, and I did them in triplicate, in PowerPoint, in Excel, and then I rewrote them last night. I'm going to try to keep this brief because a lot of you have already kind of touched on sentiments of Jeff and your remembrances. So first of all, my name is Jeff Blitzstein. Friends and family might have heard me referred to as Blitz. Jeff and I went to Cal Poly together along with Noel and Dave. Jeff and I were also the same major, but we did not, same year, we did not connect for the first 2 years. Cal Poly had enough classes in electrical engineering that we simply didn't run into each other in a course or a lab. So it wasn't until our third year, our junior year, where I guess the rigors of an engineering curriculum led us both to decide it was time to see what else college life would have to offer. And so we decided to rush Theta Chi. And we ended up being part of a pledge class of 9 that ultimately got whittled down to 7. And our pledge class is still pretty tight. Jeff was always core and central. But more above and beyond that, many nights of talking over beers, Jeff and I realized we were kind of wired the same. Triplicate on scripts, on their way to similar barbers, similar initials, JB, who's JB1, I was JB2, and just kind of view the world the same way with a strong middle-class upbringing and a sense of drive and determination that if you want something in life, you've got to earn it. You go make it happen. Jeff was admired and respected by everybody in the fraternity and friends outside. It would be a disservice to Jeff to say I was as impactful on his life as he was on mine. He touched everybody. His dedication, his commitment, his tenacity. He had those steely eyes, and you knew when he looked at you that way, this job was getting done. And I am sure he brought that to projects at home and raising the family. There was no halfway with Jeff. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it well. You're not cutting corners, and you will push yourself and lead by example to bring people to follow. Jeff was one of his offices in the house was home improvement, house improvement. That meant getting up early on a Saturday morning after very late nights, Fridays, partying, and kicking brothers in the butt to tell them to get to work. We had owned our house, and that meant, for the entire brotherhood, that meant maintaining it. And Jeff took that job with gumption. And you knew Jeff wasn't just directing people, he was out in front, tackling the biggest projects and setting examples for the rest of us. And that's one of the things I loved about Jeff, is it wasn't directed by language, it was directed by action. See if some of these traits resonate. You know, I had not had the pleasure to meet Justin, Keaton, Kira, but see if these things resonate with your relationship with him over the years. Extremely dependable, generous of heart, fully invested in everything he did, tough. When he got knocked down, he was the first guy to get back up. I heard stories about him throwing his body into high school football as a linebacker and taking out guys that were 50 pounds heavier than him. That was the passion and drive he took to everything he did. Fully committed. A doer, for sure. A closer, which as I have gotten into my professional life as a manager, I love people like Jeff because you know when they tackle a job, it's getting done and going to get done well. Most of all, he was a winner. A winner with Danielle. Jeff and I lived together for 3 months the summer before graduation, which meant a lot of weekend trips because he was building that relationship with Danielle, heading down to LA. Many nights talking about kind of finishing the chapter of school and getting ready for the next stage. He had interned at Hughes as a co-op and was returning there in the fall to start. And he had a woman he loved that he was looking forward to being down with and spending more time with. A few remembrances of Jeff. The Datsun 210 was talked about by Noel already. Jeff was smart enough to park that car on the top of a hill near the fraternity house, and it became a rite of passage for all the pledges to push start that frickin' vehicle because the alternator would never turn over. That was the consummate college car, and we had a few of them in our pledge class. He drove that thing literally into the ground. Jeff was a two-fisted drinker. And in college, two fists usually means beer in one hand, shot glass of JD, or pick your hard alcohol. With Jeff, it was one hand with a beer, and not literally, but the other hand was very close to a coffee cup. I've never seen anybody power more coffee at 5 p.m. before dinner, before a night on the town. And true to form, he handled himself with the best of them, closing the bars down, often getting a ride home. And then amazingly, fueled by coffee, got up the next morning at 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. to go to Avila Beach and train or start a house improvement. And that guy subsisted on less sleep than anybody I knew in college and still kicked ass in everything he did. I remember a number of trips down to LA. We actually crashed at the Schreiber house. Parents were always really generous. Met the humongous dog that I guess became Jeff's trouble. That dog was intense, like Jeff. That house became kind of a springboard to making trips to the LA Coliseum when the Raiders had moved from Oakland to LA. We made a few college trips to go catch Raider games, 8, 10 of us. And then I lived in LA briefly, and so we continued that tradition into the early 90s. Those were really memorable days. One of the games was a Raiders-Steelers game, and I remember specifically asking Jeff if he was gearing up. The LA Coliseum was a very rough crowd, though, and if you wore opponent's gear, you were begging trouble. So I think he wore a sweatband, but kind of discreetly hid it, and was very quiet during the game and very respectful. I think the Raiders won. He was a good sport. Jeff had an amazing laugh. It's one of the things I've reflected on the last couple of weeks. It's kind of kept me going through the tough times of realizing he's no longer with us. He had an infectious laugh. When he laughed, everybody else laughed with him, at him or with him. And then if you caught him unprepared, you'd get the snort. You guys know the JB snort? If he wasn't prepared to laugh, it would be a burst. And even that would get everybody else laughing. One of the things we did right before Jeff graduated is we made a trip to Las Vegas together. It was kind of our last trip. Went to visit his friend Mustafa from high school, who's no longer with us. And so we drove from Cal Poly out there, pretty long travel day. And we're raring to go, typical JB fashion. Let's go hit the bars. So Mustafa's took us out, and I think we had dinner and then drinks and more drinks. And we're looking at our watch, and it's 1:30, 1:45. It's like, when is last call? You idiots, there is no last call in Vegas. The bars don't shut down. So it just goes to show you, even with a college degree, we were still kind of knuckleheads. Jeff had a real self-effacing sense of humor. We've talked about that story many times. I remember being involved with Jeff and Danny's wedding. That was a really special time. I think it was probably the last time our full pledge class had gotten together to honor Jeff and celebrate his marriage to Danny. That was really amazing. I have not seen Danielle, sadly, since a trip to Colorado in the mid-90s. Way too long overdue. I'll just close by saying Jeff and I and our pledge class had a few reunions. We got together for our 20-year in 2007 at my house in Folsom. As always, Jeff was fully committed, went the furthest to join us for that trip. We got together again and made a trip down to San Luis Obispo for our 30th in 2017. And those are really special. Those connections are going to live with me for a long time. Jeff and I also got together for dinner on a business road trip in Denver. That was particularly memorable. So I'm going to do a fraternity tradition, which I hope you guys will join me in. Sometimes we'd go to the bars, and if we had enough of us, we'd kind of let our presence known, and Jeff, I know, really appreciated it. We'd say social drink, but really loud like they do when you announce a soccer goal. So whatever you have in your hand, if you wouldn't mind joining me in a very loud social drink. Cheers, Jeff. Can't believe you're gone, but thank you for touching me and so many of us.
I'm going to try to do this. This is not my forte when it's emotional. If I stand up in front of clients and talk to them about their systems, that's easy. This is hard. My name is Paul. I am an honorary member of the Bray family, as was Jeff, as was anybody I've ever gotten involved with Danielle or Nikki or Steph or anybody else. Rebecca's my wife, Danny's oldest sister. So I've known Jeff since they started dating, because once you start dating, you're expected to be there at least partially during Thanksgiving and Christmas. And as Annette alluded to, go on family trips, even if your girlfriend, Rebecca, doesn't go on the trip. So I'm going to share a few memories. I really miss Jeff. So we'll start with Yosemite. So I'm not an engineer, although I love spreadsheets just like Jeff. That's my jam. So we decided, all the Brays, myself, Jeff, and a few other friends, unfortunately Rebecca didn't go, to go do a Yosemite trip. So we booked a place. Packed some of us into my old beat-up BMW 2002, which had vacuum leaks and all sorts of other mechanical issues. Put the circus tent, that was the tent that I grew up with. It's a giant canvas bag it just basically made the back of the car sag down, stuffed it full of beer, and proceeded to drive to Yosemite. About the time we hit the Grapevine, my car was acting up. So we pull over to the side of the road, we're stuffing twigs in vacuum and hoses that are disconnected. Ended up in Bakersfield. It was just points. The points needed to be replaced. And the Bakersfield BMW, for a 6-pack of beer, did it for us. And we were on our way. We finally made it to Yosemite, set up the tent. The circus tent takes like an hour to set up. Everybody else has set up their small little tents, and we hang out, have a few beers, eat. Middle of the night, I think, thunderstorm rolls through, just dumps on us. A few of the tents were on a slope and slowly filled up with water. And of course, the circus tent only had 3 or 4 of us, I think. So everybody piled in. I think Danny and Jeff, because Jeff picked the perfect spot. His engineering sense said this is going to be the perfect spot, and they were comfortable in their tent. The rest of them all ended up in the circus tent. it was a great trip. I mean, between beer and food and hiking, and we did Half Dome, and it was, beautiful memory. I really miss that. Another one is soon after Danny and Jeff moved to Denver, Rebecca and I, with our first little husky puppy, decided to do a drive over to visit them. We had a great time. We went up into the snow. Sierra was disappearing because she was so little. Unfortunately, she then proceeded to tear up their carpet when we went out skiing. So destroyed a part of their house. I don't think we ever paid you for that. I'm sorry. I'll Venmo you something a little bit later. So, and in subsequent years, about every other year, we would come out for Christmas. When the kids were little, we'd always stay with Danny and Jeff. Every morning, I would meet Jeff at the coffee maker, and we would stand there and wait for the coffee to brew. And then we'd pour our cups, because it's such a small coffee maker, because he's the only one who drank in the house. We'd proceed to make another pot as we sat there drinking our coffee, and we would spend most of the morning just laughing and talking and watching Danny and Rebecca and the other sisters and Mark just be goofballs. And we would just stand there on the outside just going, oh. But yeah. Those were great memories. There's so much. I mean, literally, I've known him since they started dating, and he's been an awesome friend that whole time, and I'm really going to miss him. And so I'm sure there's lots more stories that I could tell, but I'm going to go sit down now.
What's up? So I want to talk to you guys about a lot of the same stuff we've already touched on, but from my perspective as his son, who he was to me as a father. So I wanted to start with driving. I remember probably second or third grade, one of my friends invited me over, and I went over to his house, and for some reason we had to drive somewhere, so his parents took us out. Before we left, he was like, my dad's kind of like a little crazy in the car, and he just like warned me beforehand, and I got in the car with him. It was nothing. I had been driving with Jeff for 8 or 9 years at this point. It didn't matter. Another big thing for me with my dad was sports. I played soccer when I was really young, and then basketball, rugby, and then obviously most recently Frisbee. And every single time I got into a new sport, I'm pretty sure my dad learned the sport faster than I did. He, especially with rugby, I knew nothing about rugby before I started playing. But 2 weeks into my first season, he had already learned the rules and he knew everything about it. And I don't know, that's just kind of who he was, right? He was really passionate about stuff like that. He was really passionate about us kids and our interests and everything. And I have this one really specific memory. Right before a basketball game, in middle school, I was warming up, and before the game, Jeff comes up to me, and he's like, all right, this is what you need to do. And he's like, you got to stand a few feet behind the guy you're guarding, and you got to just, wait for it. And then as soon as the pass comes out, you run, steal the ball, you score. And I was like, all right, I can do that. And that game, situation comes up, and I'm kind of baiting my guy, and pass comes out, I steal it, I score, and I'll just never forget how proud he looked after that game, doing exactly what he had told me to do. And I mean, that's the best example I have, but it was with every sport. He always had the strategy down, and I don't know, it was amazing to see his passion for our interests, even if he wasn't playing or doing those. Just watching us play was, I think, pretty amazing for him. On the topic of sports and competitiveness, I wanted to talk about board games as well. So anybody who's played a board game with Jeff knows that he wins, always. In the Schreiber household, growing up, we had, Probably like once a week we'd play a game, a board game. We'd just like sit around the table after dinner and we'd play some games. And if there was a strategy, like something you could strategize about the game, Jeff was doing it. Like me personally, I would just be trying to figure it out, and he would have the strategy down. He had notes for a lot of games. It was too much. There was some games where like we would pull out the game to play, and I'd be like, "Well, I've already lost. Like, I'll play, but it's not happening." I think that's all I had to say, but I just wanted to make sure. I also just wanted to say that I love you, Dad. I miss you. I don't know, you'll be with me forever. You're someone I've always looked up to. I've always tried to model myself after. That drive and that ambition is something I've always sort of strived to, I guess, recreate and make it my own. I have one more story, actually. After my first semester of college, which didn't go very well, I got a call from my dad, and we talked about this a little bit. He was a man of not very many words, but when he did speak, it was very, very important. And after I let my parents know that the semester wasn't going so well, he calls me, and I got a very stern talking to about college and what it meant and what you had to, like, the effort you had to put in and stuff like that. And I think I'll always remember that moment as the moment where I was like, I need to get my shit together. Yeah, because it was very stern, it was very intense, but like I knew it meant something, and I knew that what he was saying was important and that I needed to listen. So anyway, thank you guys for listening.
So we actually have a good friend in the family, actually really good friends with Schreibers in our family from way back when we all first moved out here. He actually can't be here today, but he did. He has a tribute he wants to read, so I'm gonna call him and put it to the microphone, and let's see if we could make this work. So Todd, I know you're watching, so you better be by your phone. Okay, 1 second. You ready? I got the microphone right here. Okay, give me 5 seconds. I'll put you on speaker, and then you're good to go. Okay, all right, thanks, bud. Okay, you're on.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Mark. Good morning. I truly wish I could be there. My name is Todd Ritterbush, and it was 29 years ago today. Oh, just 1 second. It was 29 years ago today, August 8th of 1991, that I first met Jeff Schreiber. I became Jeff's office mate on my first day on the job with Hughes Aircraft Company in Aurora. He had worked there a couple of months before me. Who could have predicted the friendship we would cherish from that first encounter? And this friendship would then carry us forward throughout our life. As such good friends, we looked after each other. Jeff introduced me to the work environment. I introduced him to the mountains. Jeff taught me how to be smart. I showed him how to throw a frisbee. Jeff connected with me and introduced me to the Bray family. Mark, Danielle, of course, Nick, the list, and Nat, Becky. Work goes on and on and on. Mama and Papa Bray loved them all. I taught him how to eat a lot. Jeff showed me how to smile in every situation, and I showed him how to smile in every situation. Jeff and I shared so many great things. We shared June birthdays and celebrated it together frequently. A significant birthday highlight was when we co-hosted an epic 30th birthday celebration for the two of us at my Aurora house. Many of the people here today were at that gathering, Brent and some others. Mission accomplished, epic. If Lisa has the photo, there's a happy 30th birthday of Jeff and I, as well as some of the birthday gang. Might see it up in the patio area. But basically, we shared so many different great things. We shared card games. We shared the card game called Cribbage, even online. We shared events together, Halloween, parties, picnics, gatherings, and good, memorable family times. We shared terms and words that very few people know, such as data views, some TLAs, three-letter acronyms, of course. And who can forget the SAC? And most of all, the phrase, "It's only another half an hour more." We also shared adventures.
You're good. Keep going.
Okay, very good. Sorry. There's a little echo here for some reason. Okay, on my end. Got it. All right. We also shared adventures. We had so many amazing adventures together. We've hiked several 14ers, skied many hills, camped out in pouring rain, tomahawked a tree to get firewood, mountain biked Elephant Rock, and are lifetime members of the Village Idiots. And everyone who is a member, please show your birthmarks. I'm showing mine currently right now. Each time we adventured, we became better and better at whatever it was we put our minds to doing. One can easily identify the greatest adventure we shared, one that really set the stage for many more like it. You have to travel back in time for a moment to October of 1991. That's almost 29 years ago. Jeff and I are office mates. There had been some discussions with our Hughes coworkers and friends in the office that everyone wanted to do a 14er, but no one had done one except for me. The conversation to most people just seemed like a dream until I decided to challenge everyone, saying, "You've got 2 weeks to get ready. We are going to do this." And so, the infamous Longs Peak adventure of October 1991 was born. Needless to say, Longs Peak is long, really long. And during this adventure, we learned firsthand what it meant to look after each other. There's a photo, Longs Peak Adventure, October 1991, that I also sort of sent, but you might catch it later. Anyway, based on that photo, I tried to make the journey to the top fun for everyone, taking it slow, enjoying the sights, pointing out what's important, and many times to keep everyone encouraged, I coined the phrase, "It's only another half an hour more." So reaching the summit was Jeff, Danielle Bray at the time, of course, Eric Tenario, Andrew Weekly, Steve Filker, and me. Success. I've got them all hooked. And we were going to be doing this again and again and again. But then there was that long journey back down the mountain. Needless to say, we only had one flashlight. And we all learned words like rock, root, step, while walking in a single file, looking out for one another. I will admit, people did get tired of me saying, "It's only another half an hour more," almost all the way down to the bottom. But fortunately, we all made it home and lived to tell the story. So Jeff and Danielle are such dear friends. They hosted a congratulations party for me when I took a job at Sandia National Laboratories in Albuquerque, New Mexico. All of the gang gathered for this momentous occasion. And after this, I sadly wasn't around the corner anymore. I couldn't just come over easily. But I made trips back up to visit frequently. And we never missed a year of sharing Christmas cards, New Year's emails, and special invitations. So fortunately, Jeff reached out to me on Sunday, July 19th, or April 19th, almost 4 months ago, and we laughed and reminisced. We looked at the photo of our Longs Peak hiking gang on our phones. And Jeff said regarding the Longs Peak trip, quote, "Still one of my favorite 14er trips. Yes, those were the good old days for sure." Quote. It is indeed the adventures that we remember the most. I am truly grateful for every single one of the adventures that I shared with Jeff. Thank you, Jeff, for being you and accepting me for being me. I will truly miss sharing more adventures with you. I love you, man. And you are the greatest. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Todd.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm one of Daniel's older sisters. I don't know if anyone explained our family situation here, because there's 4 girls and 1 boy, Jeff, in the Schreiber family. In our family, there are 5 girls and 1 boy, Mark, in the family. And although we knew the Schreibers from church early on since we were kids, I didn't really get to know Jeff until we started working at the toy store. And the West LA toy store, the Schreibers had worked there. They kept hiring out of that family until they were out, and then they said, "Do you know anyone else?" And they said, "Actually," and they hired my sister Becky, and then they kept hiring our family until we all worked there as well. So we all worked with Jeff and some of the sisters as well. But I remember the first time I actually met Jeff was at youth group, and I thought he was like a little angry metalhead dude because he just sit in the back like this with his metal t-shirts and stuff. But then the toy store, I found out that was really not him. He was just a big goofball. He was always playing little jokes and stuff. And I had this little organizer with a picture of my then boyfriend, who was very cute, I thought. And he would just like go over if I was standing there and open it and make me smile, and then he'd laugh and he'd run away. But he also did that when I was having a bad day or a terrible customer or whatnot. He would just open it until I would smile, and I would smile, but I would smile mostly because he was trying to make me happy. I just thought that was really touching, and he did that all the time. So I want to tell a story. It's a little emotional, so hopefully I'll get through it. But later in life, first of all, Daniel and I roomed together, so I got to hear about their whole romance the whole time. And I have to tell you, I thought they were together before they were together, because they hung out all the time. And then she's like, "I don't know what's going on." I'm like, "I don't understand why you don't know what's going on." So I was really happy when they got together, and they're just, I always admired them, and they did a much better job on the choice of each other than I did with my first choice of marriage. And I ended up going through this really hard time. And one night I actually slept in my car because I couldn't go home. And I waited until it was what I thought was not too early in the morning, and went to payphone and called Daniel. And Jeff picks up the phone. And I was kind of mortified because what I had to talk about was very personal and very hard. And I knew Jeff knew that something was wrong because I could just hear it in his head. He was like, "Stephanie, the consummate night owl, is calling, and it's 6 a.m. Has she even seen 6 a.m.? So I was waiting for him to ask what was going on, and all he said was, "Sure, come over. Daniel's gotten up, and do you need some coffee?" So I was like, "Yes." And so I show up, and he lets me in, he sits me down, he gives me some coffee, kisses Daniel goodbye, and walks off. And this is a really, really small thing, but for what I was going through at the time, it was the exact thing that I needed. He didn't ask any questions, even though he knew something was really wrong for me being there at 6 a.m. And he just made me so comfortable, and I remember being so intensely grateful for that small thing. And that's when I kind of started thinking back at all the little things he'd always done. He kind of knew what people needed, intuitively or whatever. A lot of times he's just in the background, and then something would need to be done. I mean, granted, if it was cleaning, you knew he was going to do it anyways. But he would just kind of take care of things, and he knew how to take care of people, and he didn't like being in the limelight. It wasn't about him, but he would just make sure everybody else was taken care of. And for the last 3 weeks, I've been at Daniel's house since he passed away, trying to help her and the family, and trying to do the right things. And I kept thinking Jeff would know what to do. And I just felt like I was fumbling around trying to make things better. And knowing he would have known, and just really missing him. So I wish you were here, Jeff. I know you would know what to do. We really miss you.
Gotta say hi to the dog. So I had a recovered memory when Keaton was talking about board games and my dad. And so I remember we would play Clue, and we would, like, maybe one of us would have, like, maybe 2 down that we thought were correct, or like maybe 1, and he would start heading towards the pool, and we were like, dang it, we lost, because he would always have it right. And then I also remember with Clue that we were running low on the score sheet thingies, or the checklist, I don't know, what are they called? And he made an app so that we could keep track, because it had to be to his liking. And so, yeah. And board games to me were really special with him. And as many of you guys know, he played cribbage, which he learned from his dad, and he taught me. And that will always be the most special game. He taught me, like, to be honest, I won, so he doesn't win every game, but that is also a game that is part luck. If any of you guys know cribbage terms, skunk, where it's 121 points is how much you need to win, and if you skunk someone, that means that they scored below 90 points, and I will proudly say that I skunked him several times, but he also skunked me. He also taught me just anything. I learned to snowboard with him. I don't remember where we were, but I was in 6th grade, and we went up to the mountains, and no matter how many times I fell on my butt, he would always encourage me with math. Just like struggling, like just sitting at the kitchen table and me crying sometimes because I was frustrated, but he was always committed to making sure I understood and did well. And in 5th grade, he came to my class on like Wednesdays or something to help kids who wanted to learn higher level math. So he wasn't only helping me, he was helping like several other kids in my class, which in that class, one of my classmates was like, "What's your father's name?" Because they thought it was Mr. Sherbert, which I love. Another thing that I remember in elementary school is we would be walking up to the school, and he would be holding my hand, and he would basically be dragging me because my little legs could not keep up with his very fast-paced speed, because he was just so determined to get me to school. I feel like I had something else. I can't remember. What? Oh, okay. So, in Costa Rica, we were at I think we were at lunch, and he got tea, and the waiter didn't speak very much English, and he was trying to ask for honey, and so he just went, "Psst," and the waiter understood and brought honey. So we would always bring that up. Oh, that's what it was. So for Frisbee, that was the first sport that I really actually played. And even though my mom is the photographer, he would always have the camera be standing near the end zone ready to take a picture of us scoring or bidding or anything. And so that was my dad. I will love you forever, and I will miss you.
Thank you.
I thought I was Jeff's only friend. What the frick? Okay, so this is probably not Jeff's favorite beer, but there's a story behind it. So I thought I would bring it instead of bubbles. I'm gonna share a beer with my buddy. And is this okay to get all the sweat? Okay, I'll pay for it. Okay. So my name is Louis. I'm Jeff's shortest friend. I just compare myself to Noel. I thought it was Noel, but I was hoping you were shorter than me. Okay, so I'm a real crybaby, and but I know that Jeff would make fun of me if I cried, so I'm gonna try to hold it together. First, I want to tell Danielle and Keaton and Kira and Justin that we love them so much, and we're here to support them. And I think everybody here and everybody that's online, we all promised Jeff that we would look after you guys, and just know that. I'm grateful for the opportunity that we got, even through this challenging COVID time, that we can come together and celebrate Jeff's life. And celebrate the wonderful friendship that he gave us all as a gift. My wife, Carolina, as Jeff used to call her, even though it's freaking hard to pronounce when you're speaking English, and she loved it. And he did it because she loved it, because it's hard to pronounce. So I'll call her Marlene, but that's her first name. She reminded me that we met Jeff about 16 years ago. So everybody that came up blew me away by 10 years. And I probably met him, and I don't remember, because I'm getting old, when he would drop Justin off when he was 6 over to play with Daniel, my son, Toe. And I truly don't remember those interactions, and that was Jeff. He probably was very polite and dropped Justin off and said a quick word. But over the years, the family, Jeff and Danielle and their wonderful kids, became just dear friends of the family, along with another group of friends that we always got together. We shared kids in school. And as the years went on, our friendship became stronger, and my family adopted the Schreibers as our family. We have very, very little family. None in Colorado, and our friends are our family. So I asked my kids, to give me some words of how they remember Jeff. And again, Jeff and Danielle and the Schreibers are our family. And my kids loved Jeff. They tell me that they always looked forward to seeing him when they were home from school. At Christmas parties, on Tuesday night concerts, and the after parties after the Tuesday night concerts. Because he always made a point to speak to them during the parties, and they actually felt when he spoke to them that he actually cared about what was going on in their lives. My daughter Jackie expressed it this way: Jeff saw me grow up and was there in my highs and lows, and is a key part of the village of caring people who raised me and influenced me. Jessica became a double E after speaking various times with Jeff and seeing how Jeff loved being a double E and how flexible the double E degree was. Jeff and Danielle took Jackie and Toe on their first camping trip, and all three of my kids, Toe doesn't say a lot, by the way, so he says, just tell him I love Jeff. All three kids looked up to Jeff, loved Jeff like an uncle, and will miss him very much. To me, Jeff was like an older brother. He was wiser, more mature, serious. There are many words. I looked it up. I was getting ready for this, and I came upon salt of the earth. And I looked up the definition. It says, an individual considered a representative of the best and noblest elements of society. And that's how I looked up to Jeff. I mean, all my other friends, they're more like me. Jeff hung out with us, but he was, not quite as wild as we were. And my goal as a little brother was to get him in trouble as often as I could with his beloved Danny. We never went to jail, but our goal, our buddies and I, we always wanted to get him in trouble. So, in preparing for today, I found this poem, and it's really long, and I'm not going to read it because you guys probably want some lunch, but it's called A Dash, and it's a poem by Linda Ellis. And it speaks about, I'll read a few lines. I read of a man who stood to speak at a funeral of a friend and referred to the dates of the tombstone from beginning to end. He noted that the first came the date of the birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between the years. For that dash represents all the time that was spent alive on earth, and now only those who loved him know that what that line is worth. For it matters not much what we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. And it goes on and on and on and on, and then the last sentence says, so when your eulogy is being read, with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you live your dash? And Jeff, everyone here knows that Jeff's dash was way too short, and it was cut way too early. But everyone here, as we've heard him speak and through your tears, can agree that his dash was a spectacularly well-lived dash. Jeff was modest in things that didn't matter, such as material things. I think everybody talks about his car. I knew him for 16 years, and he had 2 cars, the last one purchased about 1.5 years or 2 years ago. But he went all out in the things that mattered. Prioritizing his family time, taking his family on just fantastic vacations to just beautiful places. And every time we talked about those things, he says that was what was important to him. His family, going on just, unforgettable trips, family gatherings with his big family. We pulled him out, to our houses often as we could if he wasn't busy with you guys. But everybody's talked about all the good stuff that Jeff has done through the years. So I'm going to tell you about a couple of times we got him in trouble with Danny. Now, if we had our way, this beautiful, solid dash would have been a dotted line if Jeff did everything that we asked him to do. But he was always very conscientious in his decisions. In our wilder, younger days, as some guys here will remember, we would invite him to our top secret boys' night out. And I was the one that called him. Say, hey man, you want to do this? And he would always ask about the itinerary. And he would listen carefully. And if anything sounded sketchy to him, he would give me that beautiful Jeff smile, politely decline, and wish us a good time. And it didn't bother us. We knew we'd probably get in lots of trouble anyways, and there would be another day to take Jeff out. So we changed our strategy over the years, and we invited him for a happy hour on a Wednesday night. We said he can't say no to that. We didn't tell him the whole story though. We invited him to the tavern, and that day was half-price bottle of wine night. And we all got together. We all drove there because it was just a happy hour. We're going to be spending a 1 hour drinking and whatever. And we got there at 5:30, 6, and 11 o'clock comes by, and there's 4 of us, 6 bottles of wine on the table. And Jeff didn't know. We snuck it on him. So we needed to drive home, and we all looked at each other. It's like, okay, this is prior to Uber, so it was like, okay, we got to call one of the wives. Now Jeff and I both took steps back. Neither Marlene nor Danny were going to come and pick us up. And if they came, they're going to come with a baseball bat. So I think Susie came and rescued us and took us home. And I texted or called Jeff the next morning. He had a bike. He always went bike riding in the morning. He was always training for one of those Ironman things. And I said, hey, Jeff, how's it going? And he said, I canceled the bike ride. And like, yes. I said, yeah. So got him to join us on the Boys Now. He canceled his bike ride, which, we didn't understand why he rode a bike when he had a car. And I'm sure he never told us. I'm sure we got him in trouble with Danny that night. So we also got in trouble, by the way, too. So we were all put on probation. So a few years later, we called him again, say, hey, we got a boys' night out. We probably made an excuse, somebody's birthday. We got together at Jing's. And again, more bottles than guys were on the table. And, both Jeff and I stepped back and was like, call Susie or Letty. And neither Susie or Letty were available. So Jeff and I look at each other, and I lost. So I had to call Carolina to come and get us and rescue us. And we were actually more trashed than the other boys' night out that night. We went home to my deck, smoked some really stale cigars. Jeff didn't partake. He was smart. He was drunk, but he was smart still. And the next morning, and we all left our cars again at Jing's. And the next morning I called him and said, hey, how's it going? And he said, well, I woke up really early and, snuck out of the house and rode my bike to go get my car. And then again I said, yes, got him in trouble again. So that was our goal. We knew we got him in trouble with Danny, and we knew that we'd put a little dent on his perfect dash. So I'll end with one of my favorite memories I'll have with Jeff for the rest of my life. It's one of my last memories and one of the best memories, which is kind of a good combination. We were at our friends Vidal and Letty's house one night last year, late November, celebrating nothing in particular, just our friendship. And my wife, Carolina, and I had planned a trip to New York City in mid-December, in a couple of weeks. We hadn't invited anybody to come with us. It was kind of a spur-of-the-moment thing. But Carolina and Danielle started talking, and it was her 50th birthday year as well. So they called Jeff over to the table, and I said, no way. And I don't know if Jeff, I don't know the reason. I don't want to, but they planned a trip with us that day, and they booked their flights, and I think the hotel the next day, and they came with us on that trip. And what a wonderful time we had. New York City in the middle of Christmas. It was rainy and cold, but we didn't give a crap. We put our raincoats on, our boots on, and we walked 25 freaking miles every day from one attraction to the other, laughing all the way. An itinerary which, by the way, the four of us had carefully planned over mimosas at our house the weekend before we left. And Jeff got my whiteboard and actually wrote it all on the whiteboard. And Danny would cross out some of the things he wrote out, but you know, that's so we were laughing all the time at the stuff that we saw. We saw one night a butt-naked drunk Santa next to a barfing, half-naked female Rudolph. It was Santa something going on. And there were all these drunk Santas all over New York. And of course I would make stupid jokes because my other goal in life was always to try to make Jeff laugh at my stupid jokes, my sophomoric, stupid jokes. That was my goal. So as we were walking and cracking jokes and going in scheduled places, I was wearing these winter boots that were just killing my feet with all the smiles. And Jeff, after hearing me complain more than once, turned around and says, "Hey, Louis," with this kind of a soft tone. He says, "We're in New York City. Why don't you just grab a couple pieces of bologna and put them in your boot?" And he was very serious. And I think that should be a dent in his dash as well, because my feet really hurt. And he was having fun in my pain. But I was a little proud of him also for making a bad joke, a bad joke on my expense. So we came back from that trip on December 15th of last year. Merely 3 weeks later, we got a shocking email from Danielle and Jeff sharing news of his diagnosis. And thus began a tremendously brave fight with this horrible disease. And the fantastic trip to New York took an even more important significance for us. I used it to encourage Jeff by reminding him that we had promised to go back in the spring when Central Park would be in bloom. And then he would remind me of his baloney joke. On Tuesday, July 14th, just 7 months to the day that we came back from our New York trip, we went to the hospital to see Jeff one last time. And after we said our goodbyes, I tried to make my buddy laugh just one more time. I reminded him of our trip, and I told him that in his honor, we would take a Jeff Schreiber memorial trip to New York in the spring. Maybe not, whenever COVID thing is over. And I said, "And hey, buddy, I promise I will take the same boots and I will go and buy some pastrami and put it in my freaking boot. Okay, buddy?" And at this point, everybody, he smiled when you came in, and during the rest of the stuff, he was pretty, serious. And this is kind of at the end of our visit. And I, said, "Okay, buddy, I'll put some pastrami in my boot." And he smiles one more time, lifts his head up, and says, "It's baloney, Louis, baloney." That was the last time we saw him. So, well, buddy, baloney it is. Rest in peace, and we will miss you.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing your stories. That was
That was just perfect. My name is Nikki. I am one of Danny's sisters. And as I think you know by now, there's 5 of us and 1 boy, which mirrors his family. I think it's kind of ironic that he married into a family that emulates one that he has, because he knew how to handle us. So, you know, we're a loud bunch. And as as has been mentioned earlier, Jeff always knows when to step in and he knows when to step back. And I could still picture his face at these moments when he was able to actually get a word in edgewise, and he was so happy, you know, because we're pretty loud. And the moments when he would stand back with one of the other guys in our family, and because the energy was far too much, and so they would take a step back and have their own little conversation, whatnot. Again, as has been mentioned, Jeff was extremely generous. You definitely saw that in his hospitality when you went to go visit his house. But probably around 10 years ago, I started hosting Christmas night at my house. And that first time, and as is the case when we get together, we're playing games or whatnot, and we're down in the den, and he just disappeared. I didn't even notice. And at some point, he came up to me, and mind you, there was like 20 plus people gathered, and just comes up to me and says, "Okay, the dishes are all done. Do you need anything here?" And I was just blown away. I just thought, this is phenomenal. You know, that was Jeff. He just always took care of others, and he was always looking out for them. No questions asked. He just took it upon himself to do what he thought needed to be done, and clearly that's touched us all in many different ways. I'm going to miss so much about him. Sharing Sunday football, and rooting for the Steelers, our family games, and going back to those Christmas dinners where he would walk in with, you know, a casserole or whatever it was, or maybe Daniel's chocolate pudding made from avocados, for example. And just the way he walked in so enthusiastically and got everything set up and did his thing. So yeah, there's many, and I it's hard for me to even believe that he's not here. He was really kind of that larger than life individual, and it just doesn't seem possible. But I told his family, Danielle and the kids, that I would read a poem that they shared. They loved Shel Silverstein, and I have lots of his books. And the poem that I'm reading is Where the Sidewalk Ends. There is a place where the sidewalk ends, and before the streets begin. And there the grass grows soft and white. And there the sun burns crimson bright. And there the moonbird rests from his flight, too cool in the peppermint wind. Let us leave this place where the smoke blows black and the dark street winds and bends. Past the pits where the asphalt flowers grow, we shall walk with a walk that is measured and slow, and watch where the chalk white arrows go to the place where the sidewalk ends. Yes, we'll walk with a walk that is measured and slow, and we'll go where the chalk white arrows go. For the children they mark and the children they know, the place where the sidewalk ends. So since I'm closing this out, I just wanted to ask you guys, we're going to do our bubbles. If you guys want to just get up and spread a little bit, since we'll be blowing and we don't want to blow on each other, right? So, yeah. What's that? Yeah, I'll cue you. I have one more thing that I'm going to share. Okay. So I have a little something that I pulled out that I just thought was very fitting that I want to read as an intro before we begin this portion. It says, "Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not here, I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glint on snow." It was so fitting because Jeff is in us. He's in our hearts. He's in all of our experiences, the things that remind us of him. We will not, this is not a goodbye, but this is a hello to Jeff up in the heavens as we send him off and say, rest in peace. We love you, Jeff.
Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. So take the photographs and still frames in your mind, hanging on a shelf in good health and good time. Tattoos and memories and dead skin on trial. For what it's worth, it was worth all the while. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life.